Who was Napoleon Bonaparte? You've probably heard of him, but do you really know who he was and why he's so important? I'm from a history channel, and today we are going to answer these questions. So get ready. Let's go back to France in 1769. In the city of Ajaccio, on the island of Corsica, a baby boy is born to a middle-class family. He is the second of 8 children, and his name is Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon's father, Carlo, had actually been a fairly low-ranking official in the government of the Republic of Pisa before it was annexed by France. His mother, Maria, was a member of an old and distinguished Corsican family. She gave birth to Napoleon at home in the family house. There was no midwife present, and this fact will stick with Napoleon for the rest of his life. It's not clear if he ever overcame his difficult birth, but it certainly affected his personality and his psyche. As a child, Napoleon was unruly and disobedient. In school, he would pick fights with other students, sometimes over trivial matters. But this also got him into trouble with his teachers, which didn't help. Despite all of this, Napoleon was intelligent, and he excelled in mathematics. According to legend, when Napoleon was 9 years old, he saw a boat carrying soldiers across the water, and then he calculated how many soldiers were on that ship just from looking at it. This story might be true. It might be a myth. But what is true is that Napoleon was very good at mathematics. Unfortunately, when Napoleon was 10 years old, his father died, and the family's financial situation became more difficult. That meant that Napoleon could not study to become a lawyer like he wanted to. Instead, he entered the military as a cadet in the French artillery. He was sent to study at a military college in the city of Brienne. When Napoleon arrived at the college, he did not fit in with the other students. They made fun of his Corsican accent and the way he dressed. To make things worse, Napoleon was assigned a superior, a man named Baron de Mellet, who hated Napoleon from the moment he met him and made sure to make his life difficult. However, despite all the obstacles, Napoleon managed to graduate first in his class. This was not easy. In order to accomplish this, he studied long and hard. He also fought several duels against other students, including one where he defended the honor of a young woman. This earned him some respect. After graduating, Napoleon became a second lieutenant in the military. He was still far from home and without any friends or family around him. Life was tough, but Napoleon kept working hard. In 1785, while stationed in the town of Besançon, Napoleon began to correspond with a childhood friend, Marie-Louise Détaché de la Pagerie, whom he had not seen since he was 9 years old. The two started writing letters to each other about once a week, and in those letters, they discussed everything from their daily lives to politics. Napoleon fell in love with her, and in 1796, he married Josephine. The couple had a son, but tragically, the baby died after only 2 days. Later, they would have 2 more sons, but both of them would also die. While Napoleon was building his life as a military officer and husband, France was undergoing a massive transformation. The French Revolution had broken out in 1789 and had led to the overthrow of the French monarchy. The country was now being ruled by a new government called the Directory. Napoleon, who had been a supporter of the revolution, was promoted through the ranks of the military because of his skills and his political connections. Soon, he rose to become general of the army. One day, the Directory received word that an Austrian force was approaching the Italian city of Mantua. They decided to send Napoleon to stop them. The task was not an easy one, but Napoleon was up to the challenge. He used brilliant tactics to defeat the Austrians, and this caused the Directory to take notice of him. Before long, Napoleon was placed in command of all French forces in Italy. Napoleon's victories against Austria made him very popular in France. People began to see him as a true hero. He was made a count, and then an inspector general of the artillery. At the same time, his correspondence with his wife, Joseph, continued. She was in Paris trying to build a career as a fashion designer. However, she was having problems with her business and with her health. She asked Napoleon for money, and he sent it to her. He knew that she was having a hard time, and he wanted to help. Unfortunately, soon after, Josephine fell ill and died. Napoleon was devastated by her death. He had loved her deeply, and he had never stopped. Now she was gone, and he felt lost. He wrote to her family, saying that he would always remember her and that he would never forget her kindness. Napoleon was heartbroken over the loss of his wife, but he could not afford to dwell on his grief for long. The Directory had fallen and France was in chaos. There was talk of a coup, and the streets of Paris were becoming increasingly dangerous. Napoleon was summoned back to the city to put down a rebellion. When he arrived, he found that the situation was even worse than he had imagined. There was fighting in the streets, and people were being killed. Napoleon took charge and put down the rebellion with force. This made him enemies among the Jacobins, a radical political party in France. Despite this, Napoleon was celebrated as a hero for saving Paris. He was made first consul, a position of great power in the new French government. Napoleon had risen to the top of the government in just a few years. He was now one of the most powerful men in France, but he was still not satisfied. He wanted more. In 1799, Napoleon seized power in a coup and became the first consul of France. He held the title for 3 years until he crowned himself emperor in 1804. As emperor, Napoleon ruled like a god over France. He centralized the government and reformed the legal system. He also launched a series of wars that spread his influence across Europe. Napoleon was at the height of his power, but it wouldn't last forever. In 1814, Napoleon was forced to abdicate the throne and was exiled to the island of Elba. This was supposed to be his final defeat, but it wasn't. In 1815, Napoleon escaped from exile and returned to France. He raised an army and marched on Paris, but he was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, and then he was exiled again. This time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean. Here, Napoleon lived out the remainder of his life. He died on May 5th, 1821, at the age of 51. Despite his many accomplishments, Napoleon is best remembered for his failures. He was the man who tried to conquer Europe and failed. He was the man who brought so much death and destruction to France and the rest of Europe. Napoleon is a controversial figure. He was both a hero and a villain, a brilliant military leader, and a disastrous politician. He was a man of the Enlightenment who believed in reason and progress, but he was also a tyrant who crushed opposition and dissent. Napoleon is a complex and fascinating character. He was a product of his time and place, and he was also a man ahead of his time. He was a revolutionary who overturned the old order, but he was also a conservative who tried to preserve the gains of the French Revolution. Thank you for watching!